Greetings, dear colleagues, members of the public, and the candidate. The advisory group of experts met today to conduct an interview with the candidate for the position of a judge, the Constitutional Court of Ukraine, Mr. Serhii Vasilyevich Riznyk, who serves as a professor at the Constitutional Law Department and Vice Rector for Research and Pedagogical Work and International Cooperation at Ivan Franko National University of Lviv. He has been allowed to participate in the competitive selection by the Verkhovna Rada of Ukraine. The interview will be moderated by the Secretary of the AGE, Mr. Yaroslav Romaniuk. That's why I'm passing the floor to him. Please, Mr. Secretary.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning, dear members of public, dear colleagues, Mr. Candidate. I would like to say that the advisory group is present in the full composition. Mr. Chairman Aleš Zalar will be present online. Physically, AG members present are Ms. Hanna Suchodska, Ms. Maureen O'Connor, Ms. Natalia Kuznetsova, and Ms. Oksana Vasilchenko. Deputy AG members are also in attendance, namely Thomas Griffith, Richard Barrett, Marek Zubik, Vasil Shakun, and Volodymyr Kuzmenko, and myself, the AG Secretary Yaroslav Romaniuk. Mr. Sergei Vasilyevich, we have had enough time to accumulate information and data about you. We express gratitude to you for your communication and for the answers to the question posed to you. There is a number of positive data about yourself, but also there are some other issues we would like to clarify about you. And the goal of this interview is to give you an opportunity for clarification and debunking of any doubts regarding your high moral qualities requested for the candidate for the position of a judge of the Constitutional Court of Ukraine. Please note that the candidate may not provide information, documents, or other materials during the interview if the advisory group requested their provision earlier and the candidate did not provide them within the specified period, or if the candidate could have provided them on their own initiative earlier. However, the advisory group may make an exception if it determines there is justification for it. I would like also to inform you that the interview is being recorded and streamed live on the AGE resources as well as on the website of the Constitutional Court of Ukraine. Therefore, I call upon the AGE members and the candidate to limit the use of sensitive data and limited access information on live air. If we have to discuss sensitive data, we will analyze and discuss it only in this room without live broadcasting. About the timelines, I would like to say that the duration of the interview is approximately 1 hour. We kindly ask you to be concise and laconic, and the time limit for responding for a question is 3 minutes. Some members of the advisory group of experts, I mean international experts, are English-speaking. So if your English language knowledge is not sufficient, please use the headset with the simultaneous translation into Ukrainian. Use it if needed. Also, at the end of the interview, the candidate may make a short closing statement up to 5 minutes. Please observe all the rules. Now I pass the floor to Ms. Hanna Suchodska and Ms. Oksana Vasilchenko to start the interview. Thank you so much, Ms. Hanna. Should I start?
Дякую.
Thank you. Mr. Serhii Vasilyevich, we have some questions. As for administrative accountability, there are lots of proceedings as for violation of traffic rules. This is about not appropriate parking, different occasions, cases of improper parking, driving without driver's license, insurance policy, running a red light, driving in public transport lane, talking on the phone while driving. So in your view, is it acceptable? Does such a number of violations indicate a clear disrespect to the rules of road conduct? And also, we know 3 occasions for the year 2023 and 15 occasions for the year 2022. We understand that the year 2022 was quite a complex one. So please answer these questions.
Пані Оксано, справді
Thank you, Ms. Oksana. The question is really very relevant. I completely agree to the attention driven to this issue, and I would like to say that from the very beginning, in my communication with the AG, there is statistics for 7 years. I know the statistics because it was sent to me from the AG, and to this statistic data, it is seen that in 2017 I had only 1 occasion, in 2012 2 of them, 2019 2, in 2020 2 or 3, 2021 2, and the year 2022, yes, there are a lot of occasions, but again in 2023 there are only 3 occasions. 2 of them are about improper parking, and the third one, it's really, I'm learning about it because the executive service said that the proceeding wasn't opened. So the year 2022 appeared to be a very difficult one for all of us. I was remarkably loaded at work. I couldn't stay for 2 or 3 hours in the shelter. I had a lot of international students. It cannot justify myself, but maybe it can explain the circumstances. And also we had some trips to Kiev to transfer the humanitarian aid from abroad, including the humanitarian aid for other educational establishment. And we had to drive for the distance 1,000 kilometers, etc. I don't want to transfer my accountability, but the fact that we changed the drivers for the vehicle and there was no video fixation for that period, so I cannot admit that maybe in some cases it wasn't me driving, but I don't want to withdraw the responsibility from myself. So I understand that being such a candidate, and generally I have to be more respectful in regard of traffic rules, and it's a pity for me to have such a lot of violations and occasions, but please take into consideration what I have said and take into account the circumstances and the fact that there were not severe violations. Well, it was mostly about overspeeding for 2-3 kilometers. And during the last year, I had 2-3 communications with the police, and 2 of them didn't terminate with the bringing to accountability. And in some separate cases, I do not agree to these traffic rules, but I couldn't claim them because of my overloads. That's why I paid the fines itself. Okay, let's continue our communication. So please, pay your attention to the ruling from two in Zakarpatska region and it is for some 2,000. It is a large fine of 1,700 hryvnias. So tell us please about this enforcement proceeding. Yes, I remembered about it and I recalled about this document. I addressed the executive service and I asked how to pay it and what to do, and they said that I should have addressed the Petrol Police Department. I addressed the police department and they said there is no proceeding. I remember I had communication with Petrol Police Department, but there was no any ruling, no any statement done at site, and nobody writes to my email. So in the nearest future, I would like to find out what is it about, and I think that this is for our speeding, because lately these fines have been increased. But I would like to say that if there is such a proceeding, I will claim them to the trial. But if it will be too difficult, I will just pay the fine. That's it. It is coincidence. And about the automated department, we have also the enforcement proceeding from the Lviv Oblast Petrol Police Department. So even for the date of yesterday, I had not closed enforcement proceedings. I have controlled it because there were some problems with my place of residence, so not all the documents could have been sent to me. So I checked out that there are no open enforcement proceedings. Yes, I would like to say to the AG members that the secretary said that tomorrow at 8:46 a.m. there is an expert. There is only one proceeding for the Zakarpattia Oblast Petrol Police Department, but this from Lviv Oblast Petrol Police is absent. So we are collecting the information constantly. Mr. Serhii Vasilyevich. So such a number. I would like to continue to discover your attitude. So if we talk about the fact that some external observer can say that there is no timely reaction to enforcement proceeding, etc., what do you think about it? Thank you so much, Ms. Oksana, for the question. I think, so as I see it, and I hope that my position will be clear for the AG members, if we talk about the external observer, I think that the reasonable external observer perceives the personality in their integrity. So not only errors, but only some positive sides. Or maybe the external observer can understand or can find out why these errors happen. Yes, there are some disadvantages in my history about the documentation. I recognize that there have been errors and some issues could have been addressed in another way. But sincerely, I would like to say that since the year 2010, when I came to work at the Department of the Constitutional Law in Lviv National University, just as department assistant, and up to date, I have a very tense schedule, merely 12 hours a day without days off, without serious vacations. I don't think that this is a good time line and time schedule, but there was no other options because for these 15 years I have done a lot of different researches and a lot of different service. And I think that you can be, I don't want to sound non-modest, as a modest person, but I have done a lot of work, yes, and sometimes I maybe missed some deadlines with payments of the fines, but I understood that I had to pay them, and I did it always, maybe not in time. Thank you so much. Miss Hanna, Miss Sochocka.
Thank you. And now I would like to continue some question concerning possible non-declaration of housing in Lviv city. We have some questions, we received some information, but we need a kind of clarification from your side. In response to the first AG request, you provided a copy of the lease agreement for an apartment in the city Kiev and Lviv at Chernovi-Karolina Avenue, according to which the term of the lease begins in 2022. When asked by the AG why, in this case, the right to use the apartment was not declared in 2022, you provided that it was a smaller error, something like that. Has this error been rectified? How you can explain this? Why it happens? Yes.
Дуже дякую, шановна пані Ганно.
Thank you, esteemed Miss Hanna. At first, I would like to say that it was not notarized agreement. It was written just on a module, and this module, this paper, wasn't very adjusted for such type of agreement. And we corrected, there were some formulations, very old ones, so we corrected them with the pen in a handwrite, so it wasn't written that it was properly for 2022, and it's not written whether it was 2022, 2023, if we pay attention to the document itself. My family, my wife, and my 3 children in July 2023 returned from Poland, where they had been since the outbreak of full-scale invasion, and next day after their arrival we found this lease agreement, because we had a place where to dwell, and together with the owner we have no problems, and we talked that we will correct this document, that there is an error, it was corrected in the handwrite, or we will just stipulate another agreement to withdraw any possibility or doubts about the errors. So to understand that it was stipulated in 2023, not in 2022. So I will wait for the owner until she returns to Lviv, and we will correct this error.
More, how to say, not very clear explanations, because you said that it was, as I understood correctly, not written agreement, it was not notarized, but it was agreement done
Я маю на увазі,
on
що
the bed,
це не
yes.
був договір.
I mean, it wasn't in notary form. We just wrote it in our handwrite with a full trustworthiness.
No,
So it shouldn't be notarized according to Ukrainian legislation.
I would like to make me sure that it was a written agreement, it was made right, yes. And in this case, it should also be put to the declaration, yes, despite it was not a notarized document. And then, I don't know, and we are not very sure where you lived exactly, being in Lviv, because it is a date 22. But then we also found some documents that you violated traffic rules, as was your custom, yes, but it happened in 21, close to the same apartment. Have you lived in this apartment even in 21, or it was only incidentally that you found yourself just close to the house when then you rented it?
Дуже дякую, шановна пані Ганно.
Thank you, Ms. Hanna. I agree that this question is indeed important for the advisory groups of experts, because the Secretariat can confirm how full were my answers to this part of questioning. As I already indicated, from mid-2019, together with my wife, we moved to the apartment of her parents. Her mother was already has already passed away, and at that time we had 3 minor children. The third child was just born. The 2 ones were 3 and 5 years old, and since I was very occupied, my wife couldn't live on her own, so we decided from the second half of 2019 temporarily to move to a 3-room apartment that would be easier for her to bring up the children. And in the city of Novoyavorivsk, which is 35 kilometers from Lviv. Of course, at that time, except for the periods of my vacation in 2021, and except for the periods of pandemic and other periods, I was very often in Lviv, and this apartment is at Chervona Kalina Street. It's a central avenue. You in this district in Lviv, 300,000 people live, and this is the avenue you must cross anyway. So this is the street that you cross. In any case, I often visit these places due to my business reasons.
Yes, and you, as you explain us, you lived in Novoyavorivsk, and then you made every day sometimes, yes or not? How often you moved from Novoyavorivsk to Lviv? Yes, because it was a distance 35 kilometers, as you said. How often you use the car, and how often you went to Lviv?
Дуже дякую, пані Ганно. Насправді,
Thank you for the question. If I may, I would like to give an introductory sentence. I follow different kinds of anti-corruption measures, and the questions about the integrity. Usually, people who do these kinds of manipulations with the actual or not actual place of residence do these manipulations because they have too much property. My movements were due to a reason that I still don't have my own property, my own housing in Lviv. I'm not very proud of it, but, because having my status and my age, I should have something already, but we were accumulating cash, and we don't still have the sum which is sufficient for our family. So since 2019, I would like to underline again that there were huge pauses, because since September to April 2022, I was on a vacation. This document is attached. Then there was a COVID pandemic. We were working online, and since 2021, when I already started working as a vice rector, I got this need to go to Lviv almost every day. Then at that time I bought the car. 2021, and since then I was using it on almost a daily basis to go to work. Here you can even verify it on Google Maps. It takes around 45 minutes to go from Novoyavorivsk to my place of work in Lviv, and from Serhii, it takes me sometimes for 1 hour or 1 hour and a half to go to my place of work. So many residents of Novoyavorivsk go to the city of Lviv to work there on everyday basis. It's a general practice. It's very comfortable, and it's reasonable.
Continue with housing and at different addresses, because from the available dates, we know that your place of residence before you moved to your wife's parents' apartment was for a long time city of Kamianka Buska, yes, till 2019. Despite this, you continue to indicate this address as your registered place of residence in the declarations 2020 and 2022, yes? On what basis you decided to do it, yes? What was the reason that you decided to do it?
Дуже дякую.
Thank you, Ms. Hannah. Once again, I am, so to say, paying for my business because I was too immersed into the projects I was implementing. It was not my place of residence. It was a place of my legal registration, and the problem was that I could not get registered according to my actual place of residence, because for this you would require the owner of the property to agree to it, and all of the citizens know that the owners of the buildings don't always agree for the people to get registered to these places when they lease it. So there were many organizational issues. The fact that I was registered in Kalush in Lviv region, I didn't have my own housing in Lviv, and back then I was still acting as an attorney. I had a need in Lviv to be registered in Lviv. That's why I got registered at the place of my uncle in Kamenka-Buyska. It was comfortable because at that time my former employer had a huge business project there, and I accompanied legally the construction, and for some time I stayed in these buildings, but later I freed it and the place of registration stayed like that. And I was always quite calm about the place of registration because at some point it was cancelled, and I thought that the free movement should be a priority. At the same time, I agree that I should have been more attentive with it, and in 2023, when I learned that I was no longer registered, I didn't know about it, and it's something I missed. I acknowledge it, but I registered again in the house of my mother.
Serhii Vasilyevich,
Serhii Vasilyevich, could you please explain what cars do you and your family use? Thank you, Ms. Oksana. Today, I use my working car. It is rented from Lviv University, and the agreement is submitted to the DGE. There was also a written question during previous rounds about the car of my brother, Jeep Renegade. It's a small car my brother bought. He is an IT specialist, and I used it when I went abroad to my family at Poland. At that time, the car was not in a due state, so I did it to avoid any problems at the border, why I am not using my own car. We are not usually using this car, except for the periods when we go to Kalush to visit our mother together. Our family doesn't use any other cars. The cars we had before was Mercedes-Benz. It is a model of 2003, and the market value of this car is quite low, and the previous car I owned was a Romanian Dacia Logan car, which we no longer own in our family. Serhii Vasilyevich, the car you're saying you are using, which is rented, do you reflect it, this right of use in the declaration? Thank you. I started using this car only in 2023, and I will for sure reflect the usage of it in my declaration for 2023. I will submit in March. In 2022, I didn't use the car I use today.
My question now concerning your attorney's activity. Because responding to our written request, you mentioned that you obtained the right to practice law on 3rd January 2006. However, legal practice was never been your main line of work, and you effectively terminated it after 2010, if I'm not wrong, yes? And can you inform us why have you not formally terminated your practice and you not, how to say, decided to register in Unific Bar Register of Ukraine? Yes, what was your decision? How you do?
Дуже дякую, шановна пані Ганно, за це питання. Воно насправді...
Thank you very much for this question. Actually, it has a practical component and theoretical component. For myself, I try to understand it. I will try to answer your question. In 2006, I got the right to practice law as an attorney, and for the first year or two, it was interesting for me. But later, my professional priorities shifted, and I started rather practicing teaching activity. And at that time, I was in the register. I'm not sure how it was called back then. Then in 2010, I stopped practicing law as an attorney, and not once I used this status during any kind of legal processes, even though I sometimes represent the interests of legal entities. But there is no requirement in the law to cease this activity if you no longer actually practice it. So I don't hold any place which is not possible to be at while having the attorney's certificate. I didn't stop it. I'm not actually working as an attorney, and probably not the bar, not me, showed the initiative to correct this situation. But since the AGE had this question, I can publicly announce that as soon as possible I will do all the necessary steps to be included in the register. If it is needed, I will most probably cease my attorney's activity. I understand that it's better to solve it, but it's interesting that in the Constitutional Court of Ukraine there is already proceedings pursuant to the complaint of Plaskach citizen because of the monopoly of the Bar Association of Ukraine, the obligatory inclusion into this Bar Association. It is a subject to further discussion, but as to the questions to me, I will do everything I can so that there is no doubts about it.
So I can assume that you, as a lawyer, you are aware, yes, that not finishing your work as a bar and not making a formal change in the register, you will fall under the disciplinary sanction. Yes, it's not fully in, how to say, in line with how to say, posture to be a lawyer, yes, and to be a judge.
Пані Ганно, я з вами повністю згоден.
I completely agree with you. And there is an interesting point here. The Council of Attorneys never reached out to me on this matter, and I do not accuse anyone except myself, and no one was harmed, and actually no legislative norms were breached except for this lack of my initiative. Are there any other questions? Yes, Serhii Vasilyevich. I think that we need further clarifications as to the next facts. In the declaration as of 2020, you said that you had $67 of cash. We understand that you have little children, a wife, and you're the main provider for them. What is the source of this money? Thank you very much, Oksana. Yes, it's true that as of the end of 2020, we had this sum of cash. Unfortunately, it's significantly smaller today because we had expenses, but from the point of view of an external observer, as we say, for 20 years of life, with a modest way of life our family had, it's a fine sum of money. I can give some examples. Some calculations, we could easily save this money. For the first 10 years of our family, we didn't have children. We were just two of us with my wife, and back then I had a big salary. It is reflected in the declaration. It is in my dossier. When we were calculating the expenses, I am not sure what was the exchange rate, and I'm not sure I took it into account in my reader's answers, but in 2006 my annual salary was 55,381 hryvnia, and it was $11,000 approximately a year, and the minimum subsistence minimum was significantly lower, and if we do these mechanical calculations, we could easily save $4,000 per year. At that time, we didn't acquire any immovable property anywhere. We didn't buy any car that would be worth of over $11,000. Another one was worth $7,000, and for this whole period of time, we were just on one trip abroad with our children. I'm not proud of it because one should find time for the family and for things like that. But we were living in a modest way, and our parents helped us. So for 20 years, accumulating the sum of money, taking into account my income, taking into account the fact that we didn't have any substantial expenses, and it is possible to have this kind of savings. We were also purchasing foreign currency, so according to my calculation, it is reasonable. Thank you. I don't have any further questions. Any other questions? Ms. Marina Corner, please.
Morning. I just was paying attention to your last answer, sir, and you said you live modestly, you have for 20 years, you don't spend money, but then you mentioned rather quickly that your parents helped you. I'm interested in knowing how your parents helped you and how much money was contributed to either you or your wife or your children by your parents or your wife's parents.
Дуже дякую, шановна.
Thank you, Ms. Marin, for the question. First of all, and by the way, I indicated it in my written answers, the parents helped us in a natural form. In Ukraine, it's quite a spread practice. My parents and the parents of my wife are also quite modest people. They are from villages, and they have plots of land with products planted there, so we were not buying anything in stores because we had a possibility to get the products from the parents, and it was a huge help. Of course, sometimes they would also give some not too big sums of money. It is very important too. I would like to finish this answer. Why didn't we buy the housing before? Because we were one child was born, then the second child was born, and we had different needs in terms of the space we needed. So that's why we still need to rent an apartment for also quite a substantial sum of money. So we are in quite a trap here.
But financial sum wasn't significant for these 20 years. I will evaluate it as $10,000 generally.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions?
I'd like to ask two questions, if I may. Firstly, Mr. Riznyk, you're a very busy man. You've indicated all the activities you're involved in and at the university, and that you have international students and so on. And I think on two occasions in your discussion in relation to the road traffic issues, which are, a busy person will accumulate those sort of problems. And in relation to the registration of housing, I think you said that you were paying for your busyness. And this might give the impression to an outside observer that different standards apply to people who are busy. Because they're so busy, they overlook small things. So could you address that issue, I wonder?
Дуже дякую, шановний пане Річарде. Звичайно, я повністю згоден з вами, що виправдовувати помилки ті чи інші надмірним навантаженням і зайнятістю.
Yes, I really understand that I shouldn't talk about my overloading of work. I said that I don't want to justify myself, I just explain the circumstances. And maybe it's not the best comparison, but when you do some good deeds, sometimes you can do harm to some private interests. For example, if I talk about my private interests, because these errors were attributed, so they were my fault and I suffered from them. But I understand that all these standards should be equal to all people. I have worked over it, and it was very difficult and very tense period, but all the projects that were launched in this period, there is the only one journal on constitutional law, and also we have school of young law specialists. When people from different schools over Ukraine, they study different types of law and they decide whether they want to become a lawyer or not. We know that legal studies in the school, they are not taught by people who are specialists in law, and that's why we would like to enhance this direction. That's why now I'm not so overloaded. I managed to save myself in my quietness and physical and moral form after this difficult period. But I understand what you are talking. The question from Thomas Griffith.
Here today, we've been talking about very important issues regarding integrity. These have been very valuable questions. Another component of integrity, I believe, is a candidate's motivation for why they would want to serve on the Constitutional Court. Can you give us some sense of why you have applied, and if you are appointed, what role you see yourself playing on the Constitutional Court?
Дякую, шановний пане Тома, за
Thank you, Mr. Thomas, for such a serious and interesting question. I will try to be laconic and concise. I won't drive your attention to my background and experience, because for 15 years I have worked with the constitutional law and constitutional justice. But I think that Ukraine today, under the present conditions, is the only example for the humanity generally, when during the ongoing war on the territory of war there is a democracy preserved. I have never found other examples of such things, and for example selection procedures like ours takes place, and we should preserve all this, and preservation can happen when we defend the constitution. So to defend people, we should defend the constitution to preserve the democracy and to win in this war. Because we should win the Russia, and we should prove that dictatorship is not just and not efficient. They lose if this dictatorship is not based on democracy. So that's why we shouldn't over-evaluate the role of the Constitutional Court. That's why this is a historic occasion for me to become part of such a body. And I live in this regard. My personal career is on 5th, 6th stair for myself. Thank you. And before we close the interview,
One question, if I may. Please.
Перепрошую, є запитання у голови пана Залера.
there is a question from Mr. Zaller. Mr. Zaller, please.
Thank you. It's still not completely clear to me the answers you provided in writing and the answers which you provided us today with respect to your income, savings, and source of these savings and income. According to the data and information the AGE is at disposal, between the year 2000 and 2020, you and your spouse earned approximately 110,000 US dollars, approximately. But your spouse contributed very little to that amount, approximately 7,000 US dollars. So the main source of income obviously came from your side. Now, we also calculated the expenses which you occurred in this period, which amount to approximately 92,000 US dollars. Now, in the declaration for the end of 2020, you stated that you saved 68,000 US dollars. And today you said that actually the contribution to these savings from your parents or her parents were rather low. So you said approximately 10,000 US dollars. While in a written explanation, you said that the main source of these savings comes from your relatives, not from your spouse. So can you explain now this discrepancy between what you provide us in writing and what you said just now during the interview? Because there is a gap now in this between these statements and estimations.
Дуже дякую, шановний пане.
Thank you, esteemed Mr. Alish. I will try to answer your question in detail. 100% I state that there are no discrepancies between my written answers about the sources of income and of cash that we have in savings and my words. Maybe I wasn't very clear, and I'm ready to explain myself. At first, I would like to provide you with general explanation. These $68,000 were not detected by somebody or in my accounts. I indicated this cash voluntarily and sincerely in 2020 when I submitted my candidacy for pro-rector. I had 2 days to fill in the declaration because it was very surprising for me that I was honored to indicate it. That I indicated the sum of money that I had for the end of 2020. It was $68,000 that was accumulated by very difficult work, and $92,000 about the expenditures that you mentioned. These, as I have already stated, in these expenditures, there were expenditures to buy the foreign currency. And if we take that, at least 2,000-3,000 US dollars and sometimes more, taking into consideration my income and minimum retribution, only at the expense of this money, $50,000 are accumulated in a very easy way, if we take the arithmetics. For example, the year 2009, it was, there were my income. So one of the 4,700, then 6,500, then 6,900, I mean year per year. And what is another important thing, so when we live together with my spouse and we accumulated the savings, there were also, in the enterprises where I worked, there were good social packages. So we were paid for our transportation, service cars and service transport was given, insurance was paid from the employer. So we didn't pay a lot of money for everyday things. We had food and lease agreement to rent an apartment. It was really not very big sum of money. And when I went to this selection, I was very worried about the fact that you will tell me that I am so poor that I have nothing, and now I have to prove that I have such big money. So I repeat again, I have never traveled, I have never purchased some big things, I haven't gone to Maldives and even to Egypt, but we lived in a very wonderful atmosphere. We were not like poor people. So if you need, I can provide you with further information, but all these savings, they are accumulated in an honest way, and they will be. Are there any other questions? If there are no other questions, Mr. Serhii Vasilyevich, you are given 5 minutes for your closing remark. Thank you, Mr. Yaroslav. Esteemed members and deputies of the AGE, first of all, I would like to express my gratitude for this time that we actually have spent together. I think that all Ukraine now sees how successful is that selection procedure. And I will not exaggerate if I say that this is a historic one. I understand that for interviewee, it's quite a stressful situation, including myself, because we are the pioneers of such a transparent, acute, but very just selection procedure. And I think that we will be example for other people, and it will be easier for them to use other example that they see and have seen today. If at the result of the selection procedure we will close these vacancies from Verkhovna Rada and from Congress of Judges, I think it will be a big contribution from ourselves to the victory. Earlier I had opportunity to be involved as part as a defendant of Supreme Court and the Constitutional Court, and also the highest anti-corruption court in the Constitutional Court. And I think that this is our turn to defend the Constitutional Court and to enhance the Constitutional Court to implement duties from the Constitution and from the people of Ukraine. And it's not just exaggeration, but this is really my opinion. So I wish you success in such a difficult task. Thank you so much. Thank you for your answers. The interview of the AG with the candidate for the position of the Constitutional Court of Ukraine, Riznyk Serhii Vasilyevich, is closed.